Hey, have you ever felt like God has let you down? I know I sure have. If you can say no, God's never let me down. Let me just tell you, I think you're living in denial or you have terribly low expectations of God. But on the other hand, if you have, and if you can say, yeah, God's disappointed me, then I think you're going to find this talk really helpful. Stick with me. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me at Craig Walker Coaching. My name is Craig Walker, and I help people break free from the paralysis of self-doubt and to learn to live that life that they were born to love. Now, if you can imagine a life lived with peace and confidence and joy, then you just imagine that life that Jesus came to give you. And let me just say this, if you're not experiencing that kind of life, you're really going to be let down. Today I'm addressing the issue, what to do when you think God has let you down. How do you keep your disappointment from turning into resentment, anger, and finally withdrawal? Well, I think there are a number of reasons that you and I as Christians could wind up getting disappointed with God. I think one of the greatest reasons is just unanswered prayer. You prayed for God to heal your marriage, healing it, by the way, that still hasn't come, or perhaps the marriage ended in divorce. You prayed for a child to overcome an addiction. Today, that child sits in prison. You prayed for healing that didn't happen. You know, I have close friends, Roger and Sharon, their daughter just recently died. The day after she died, my cousin, her son died after spending years of dealing with cancer and suffering the effects of the treatment. My cousin said, you know, I was prepared to lose my son. What I wasn't prepared for was to watch him suffer. Yeah, I understand why people like that, and you do too, why they would be disappointed with God. I think what most of us struggle with is why would they not? Here's another big driver of disappointment with God. I think it's just self-doubt. I always thought that I wasn't very smart. I wasn't even smart enough to do the things that I thought God had created me to do. Compared to other people, I thought I was about as bright as a $2 flashlight on a bright sunny day. I just wondered, God, why did you make me so stupid? And I knew God wasn't going to send me to hell for being dumb. I did. I always thought one day I'll get to heaven, he'll just put a pathetic arm around my shoulder and pat me on the back and say, well, bless your heart. At least you tried. What about you? Do you struggle with disappointment with God? Do you have a weakness that he hasn't helped? A body that turns people off instead of on? A physical feature you hate, an addiction you can't conquer, an eating disorder that won't stop, a sexual orientation that God just hadn't changed? By the way, it's not just these big things, is it, that creates disappointment in us? Sometimes I'm just amazed at how little it is just to trigger it. This is embarrassing to tell you, but just this morning, I woke up, I had my quiet time, I began to pray, and I noticed I don't really want to pray. I want to skip this and maybe read my Bible and go on to something else. So I pressed my thoughts and said, what's going on? Why don't you want to pray? And I began to realize the reason I don't want to pray is because I'm thinking prayer doesn't work. I can get more done with working than I can by praying. I've been praying over this project since I started. And I struggle to see any difference that prayer's made, honestly. Now, you don't have to send me an email. I know these thoughts are wrong. I do. But still, I felt them. And I was disappointed. How about you? Perhaps you're disappointed now. What do you do when you feel like God has let you down? Let me suggest a 3-step process to deal with disappointment. These are 3 conscious choices that you can make that will deliver you when you feel doubt slipping in. Now, I hope you have a pen and paper ready. You really will want to write these down and hold on to them. Here you go. Number 1, are you ready? Choose to accept that God's love is absolute. There's a story in the book of John that really drives this point home for me. This is a story about Jesus, his friend Lazarus, their sister, his friends Martha and Mary. You already know the story. Martha and Mary send word to Jesus that his friend Lazarus is sick and he needs to come and heal him. The expectation is that, well, Jesus is Lazarus' friend. Jesus heals the sick. He will come. He will heal Lazarus. Kind of end of story. That was a reasonable expectation because they were close friends. But Jesus didn't come. And Martha and Mary's brother, Lazarus, he died. They certainly know that he loves their brother. He can heal the sick. So why would it be wrong for them to have an expectation that Jesus will come and will heal their brother? After sending the message, Martha and Mary console their brother, wiping his feverish face with a cool, damp cloth, and Mary whispers a smile that says, your friend Jesus, he's coming, because that's what they expected. Lazarus musters a faint, hopeful smile in reply, but a day later, Lazarus slips into a coma. Now Martha and Mary, they pace the floor. They manage to hang on to their hope because Jesus is their friend and Jesus is coming. But that afternoon, Lazarus slipped into a coma, but now he's died. He's gone. Hurt, confusion sweeps over the sisters like a hurricane. What happened? What happened? Can you imagine them asking? Can you imagine the emotions inside? Where is he? Why didn't he come? And by the way, Jesus didn't come the next day either. Finally, 4 days later, after Lazarus died, Jesus arrives. He didn't even come for the funeral, for crying out loud. Jesus didn't come to heal their brother, and he didn't even come to honor their friend in burial. He didn't even show up. Why? Hey, don't sing to me. This has got to be what they're thinking. Don't sing to me. What a friend we have in Jesus. He let me down. And honestly, this is the real feeling I think most of us go through when we feel like God let us down. There's this assumption that they made, it was just wrong, that Jesus' love was in question, which it never was. Did you know that the scripture actually says this in the story? So although Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, he did. He just stayed where he was for the next 2 days. There was something greater that they had no idea that was going on that he had to do. If you feel doubt slipping into your thoughts, you need to reject it, reminding yourself that God's love should never, ever be on trial in your life. The problem is that you are not God and you don't see things like God does. Isn't that the truth? The scripture tells us, this is Isaiah, the book of Isaiah chapter 55, says that God's thoughts are not our thoughts. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts, so high as far as the heavens are above the earth, his ways are above ours. We just don't get it. But I know this too. You've heard that verse quoted so many times by people that use it as an excuse not to think. It sounds trite to you, doesn't it? But listen, don't let the enemy rob you of this truth just because some people abuse the truth. All I'm saying is Jesus' love should never have been on trial, not then and not now. And your first conscious choice to rescue you is to say, God, your love is absolute. It's okay to wonder why. It's even okay to question. It's okay to tell God, I don't get it. This hurts. But it's dangerous. It's dangerous to doubt God's love. Make the choice. Make the choice today that whatever you're going through, that God's love is absolute. And whatever's going on, whatever you don't like, it has nothing to do with that God doesn't love you and that God has let you down. That's number one. Here's number two. Choose to live with the tension, because there will often be tension between what God does and what you think God should do. Believe me, you don't want a God that you can fully comprehend. You don't. That's why every human being has struggled with disillusion and disappointment at some point in their life. I'm saying everyone. Job, according to God, Job was the finest man to ever walk the face of the earth at this time in his life. David, you all know that David was the greatest king of all time. But this is what David said. Why do you look the other way, God? Why do you ignore our suffering and our oppression, God? Because that's what he's asking. God, why? John the Baptist. Jesus said this about John. No one is greater than John, but John struggled. After hearing what Jesus was doing, he began to wonder, is this the guy? While John was in prison, don't miss that fact at all. John called 2 of his disciples and he sent them to the Lord to ask him, are you the Messiah? Are you the Messiah that we've been expecting, or should we keep looking for someone else? Because John's saying, from where I'm sitting, it doesn't sound like you're the Messiah. I just don't understand. Martha and Mary, right here in this story. Martha went out to see Jesus when he finally arrived, and Martha said, Lord, had you showed up, my brother would not have died. If only you had been here. If only you would have come. God, I don't understand. Why? Why didn't you come, Jesus? Now, this may shock you. I saved this for the last in this part of the story. Do you know someone else that expressed disillusionment and disappointment? Jesus. I'm not being blasphemous. I'm just telling you the truth. Jesus, who suffered and struggled with every temptation you have, was tempted to doubt. As Jesus hung on the cross, he felt the full weight of our sin and the separation that sin caused. And you remember what Jesus said? He called out with a loud voice, my God, why have you abandoned me? Men and women, he's never abandoned us. It's just that we don't see things from God's perspective. We don't. So let's leave room to live with attention. Here's what I do. Here's the way I apply this choice. I just tell God, God, I don't understand, but one day I will. And for now, I'm willing to live with the tension that exists between my understanding of what I think you should do and the way you're doing it. But God, I get it. Your love has never been on trial with me. Here's a third choice. If the other two will protect you, this one will give you the hope that you need to move forward. Here it is, number 3. Choose to believe that anything is possible with God, and it's possible for you. Underlying our disappointment, this is it. Underlying our disappointment is the need to see, to experience some kind of sign. When I look at my life, though, compared to my non-believing friends, listen, on the surface, most of the time, there's little evidence for God. I labor to build my house in 105-degree heat every day. Surely God can turn down the heat, at least in my part of the neighborhood. You know, I still struggle to live within a budget. Debbie and I still have arguments. Our kids still fail. My car tires, they still wear out. My unbelieving friends, let me tell you about them. They get promotions, they live in bigger houses than I have, and they drive in nicer cars, and their kids are successful, good, and seemingly very happy. On the surface, their lives look more blessed than mine. I just don't get it. Most days, I don't even think about it. But now that I mentioned it to you, I am thinking about it. God, where are you? Why did my friend's daughter have to die? Why did my cousin's son have to suffer? Why did Martha and Mary have to watch their brother die? Why did Jesus not even show up at the funeral? Listen, the answer is not going to take away your hurt. The answer won't heal your marriage or put your career back on track. It won't. It won't help me finish my house, and it won't make the temperature go down. But what it will do is it will give me a perspective that I need to stay walking by faith to where I live with hope and I live with confidence and joy and peace. And here it is. The answer is what Jesus told Martha. So he said, Martha, I am the resurrection. When she asked, Lord, had you been here, our brother wouldn't have died. And Jesus said, Martha, do you believe? I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. Death isn't the end. Everyone who lives in me and who believes in me will never, ever die. Do you believe, Martha? This is a conscious choice that you and I have to make. It's to believe that when all things come to an end, when it looks like there's no hope, there's always hope because he's God. Anything is possible with God. And it's possible for you because he loves you. He never quit loving you. And he loves you right now. If you can imagine the worst thing that you've ever done, in that moment when you were so ashamed of yourself, God loved you in that moment as much as he does in the best moment of your life. When you've accepted that God's love is absolute, when you're willing to live with the tension, this is going to change everything. But when you add to that anything is possible with God. If death isn't the end, then what else can Jesus do? His love for you is absolute. He's always watching out for your best interests. The tension is real because you're not God. Choose to live with it. And number 3, believe. Believe right now. What choice do you need to make? What struggle are you going through? I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying what you're believing is going to happen. I'm just saying believe that anything is possible with God and leave it there. And watch what it does to the disillusionment and the disappointment you feel. Hey, I hope this has been helpful to you. Please click the like button. You might even share this with a friend. That would help me so much. Leave a comment. Leave your questions down below. And man, may God help you to live that life that you were born to love. And I'll see you next time.